My name is Barbara, and we are part of Alpha. I am a business developer here. And before we start into the O-1 visa subject, I'm going to introduce a little bit of who we are, why we are here, because maybe some of you are just getting to know us. So we are Alpha, Alexandre Law Firm and Associates. We are a law firm specialized in immigration in the United States with more almost 15 years of existence. And we are just working with immigration in the US. Our CEO is Dr. Felipe, who are here with us. He's a licensed attorney and specialized in immigration, member of ILA, and he has been working in several types of immigration cases. Our work here is to help people and their families to immigrate in a legal, strategic way, and we want to respect the American law, obviously, and also the moment of each client. So what we like to do is to structure the strategies and personalize them according to the client's needs. And if there's one thing that we really believe at it's every case is unique, and there's no such thing as um, um, recipe to work in the cases, right? So this moment, a lot of visas are stuck, and O1 is a real alternative for a few people, but it became also a target of a lot of speculation, and we want here to cause a little bit of reflection and help you understand if this O1 visa makes sense for you or not, and what you could do to strengthen your profile and apply now or in the future. So no one better to talk about O1 than Dr. Felipe. So Dr. Felipe, I would like to start asking you, in this immigration scenario, what have been coming to you like as the most wanted information or the most asked question about this scenario, this immigration scenario?
Beautiful. It's great to join everyone today. The team asked us to give people a few more minutes to join. And so I think that is a perfect question for us to start speaking generally about the immigration climate in the United States. I know that some of the things that we see on Instagram bothers us. And I think it causes a certain kind of panic. And there are certain policies that are certainly stricter than before. And so in general, it gives people the impression that perhaps they're not welcome as immigrants anymore, or that it's no longer possible to immigrate. But that simply is not true. Based on our experience as people who do this day in and day out, every single day helping people, it definitely still is possible. The law is still here. The federal courts are for the majority, are on our side. And so it's possible, if you have a dream and you do it the right way, for you to come and to stay legally in the United States. Unfortunately, people who are subject to removal are people who simply, for whatever reason, whether they've trusted the wrong professional or they never got around to it. These are people who do not have legal status here in America. And so we are continuing getting cases approved, whether these are cases like the O-1 or other kinds of visas, other kinds of green card, and even the immigration court. So things are working. You have an administration which is trying to take a strict stance, to show some of their voters that, look, we're a country of laws, and you have people here who haven't respected the laws. But it's our job to actually get people here legally. And if you're here legally, and if you have your papers, and if you have everything in hand, you're fine. That's the message. And so it's great because we get the opportunity to travel across the country. We go to the East Coast, we go to the West Coast, we go see our clients, our refer sources, our families. And it's a great country. I'm always impressed as to how well our clients are doing, how well our people are doing, how fun it is to travel and to get to know different communities here. So if you're watching this, if you're interested in this, it means you've already made some kind of a decision. You're either here in America, you're abroad, you're looking to come here, but it's something that the law will work in your favor if you plan accordingly. And let me just say this: some people might have a question about whether or not there's an immigration pause. If you're
Yeah.
one of the 75 countries on the list, uh, that pause, and the pause applies to consular processing. So if you're in America, you're going to do a change of status. It doesn't apply to you. But if you're
Mhm.
abroad and you're thinking about starting this process, oh my goodness, why would I start if there's an immigration pause? Well, first, we don't know how long the pause is going to last. It's something based on they're going to reevaluate their internal public charge policies. Okay. Um, but very importantly, the O-1 visa is not an immigrant visa. It's
Yeah.
not directly a green card. And so what that means is that the immigrant pause is only for immigrant visas. Now,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean you can't get the process started. You can get the process started, and eventually, once you're able to get that interview, what's happening is the officers will say, "Well, there's a pause, so then we'll let you know when the pause is lifted." But the O-1 is not an immigrant visa, so guess what? Even if your country is on the list of the 75 countries, you can still absolutely do it. So, folks, my conclusion about having worked, over a year now under this administration is that things are more strict, but the law still works, and it works in your favor if you plan accordingly and you do the right thing.
Mhm. Yeah, so I would like also to comment a little bit on that, that there is a immigration way, right, that it still works for people who are outside the United States and people who are in the United States, right? A lot of categories continue to be processed, and for a lot of profiles, O-1 visa makes a lot of sense, right? Because although it's not an immigrant visa, it's not yet a green card, but people can make a way through that. Isn't that right, Dr. Felipe?
Absolutely. If you have been at the top of your profession, and it scares people, am I really at the top? And we're going to analyze it with you, but it's a way for many of our exceptional clients to come here and start living that dream, start seeing what it feels like to live here, right?
Mhm.
We say that the O-1 visa is kind of a way for you and the United States to get to know each other, right?
Mhm.
It's a
Yeah,
dating process, right?
yeah,
It's not the wedding ring yet, right? The wedding ring is the green card, but it's a chance for both of you to show each other if you want to be with each other for a very long time, and it's great. So you get to already come, you get to already work, you get to live, you get to do everything that you would be doing if you did have your green card, and then you get to make it happen here. If you want to later on shoot for the EB-1A green card, make it happen. Bring your resume to life here, and so that's what it's about.
yeah, yeah. And who are we talking about when we talk about O1A and O1B? What type of professional or people?
Let's start in reverse order then. O-1B is for artists. We're talking
Yeah.
about artists, on a traditional sense with the canvas and the exhibitions, and we're talking about motion picture artists. Okay, and then the O-1A is for everybody else, all the other professions, right? And you have to, whether it's for the O-1A or O-1B, you have to show that you are at the top of that profession, right? It doesn't mean that you've been doing it for 20 years and you're the top executive. Obviously, those people qualify. But we have people who've been doing it for 5+ years, but they've really excelled at what they do,
Mhm.
right? So you have to show that you're the best of the best, and then we go down a list of certain criteria, right? And we show that you have at least three of these, and then with that, we also show that there's been a continued recognition of your work. It wasn't something that all of a sudden last year, you paid a company to write some articles for you, right? That's something a little controversial right now, whether or
Yeah,
not articles can be used. And I say, look, if it is really related to your work, it can, but it can't be presented in a way where all of a sudden you're like, you're famous, right? You know, um, Start early, right? The issue is that when people are exceptional, they're not necessarily looking to show it so much. They're just
yeah,
working, just doing their thing, right?
yeah,
But let's go through some of the criteria, and then Barbara, you throw in some as well, But and it's a little different for O-1B for the artist and then for
yeah,
everybody else. But let's kind of start with O-1A. Essentially, are, are you involved in your industry, right? Whatever it is that you do, for engineers, or lawyers, entrepreneurs, etc. There are professional organizations that help other professionals in your area, right? It could even
Mhm.
be some kind of specialized chamber of commerce. It could be an association of engineers, whatever it is. There are professional organizations serving people in your industry. Are you a member of such an organization? And it's important to note, it has to be a kind of organization that is selective. It's not just,
Mhm.
for example, I'm a lawyer, so I'm a member of the bar, right? And they're like, oh, no, not that bar. It's the bar association um,
Yeah.
that the attorneys join after they pass the bar exam, and they show that they have, good moral conduct, and et cetera. Um, I mean, I had to pass the bar exam, right? But after I passed the bar exam, like every other lawyer, if I just join a New York bar, for example, association, it might not meet that criteria because any lawyer can just pay to join, right?
Mhm.
So if it's an organization that you pay to join, then you could make the argument that it was hard to get those qualifications in the first place, but it's not really a great argument. So find
Mhm.
an organization that is selective of its members, and there's plenty out there. Okay, they have to
Yeah.
actually look at your qualifications and select you, and then within that organization, once you're chosen, have you occupied a position of leadership within that organization? Right, that's an organization with
Mhm.
distinction, right? It's an organization that's
Mhm.
members, and within that, you have occupied a position of leadership. Um,
Mhm.
being a leader in your industry, have you judged the work of others? What does that
Yeah.
mean? If you're an athlete, have you been a referee at competitions, or have you
Yeah.
been a judge at a panel, right? Uh,
Mhm.
or sometimes people they're at a loss. Like, how can I meet this criteria? For example, if you're in AI, or if you're in robotics, they have these kinds of competitions in universities.
Mhm.
Go volunteer your time. Go say, hey, I've been working in this field for years. I would love to help some of your students. I know you have several competitions throughout the year. They would love to have you. I've done this before as a lawyer. I've participated, well, both as a student and as a lawyer now. I've participated in mock trials. So you have these cases essentially, and these students, performing oral arguments. And I was one of the judges. I've done it several times, and it's very enjoyable. You're giving back, and you get to satisfy one of the criteria. Um, have you done something that can, be considered original? Have you publish things, right? Have you published articles? Have you published books? Have you published chapters in books? And make sure that whatever you publish, it is published on a platform that is recognized in your industry. It's not just a random website. It's something that other lawyers or doctors or engineers or artists would actually look at. Have you been interviewed by mainstream media? Right, and we have to look at the circulation count and argue if we can whether or not it's mainstream media. But obviously, something like Wall Street Journal, yes, for sure. New York Times, yes, for sure, right? Or whatever the equivalent is in your country. Have you been interviewed, and do they talk about your work? Is it a meaningful article about your work and your contribution and how you've excelled in your industry? Um, do you make a high salary? And what is that? There's no perfect definition for it, but I say if you make 50% above that of people with your work experience, yes, you have it. If you make 25%, yeah, you probably also have it. So we compare you and the number of years you work with similarly situated professionals, and we argue that you have a high salary. Um,
Mhm.
if if it's some kind of art, have you shown your work in exhibitions, right? And exhibitions, we've even argued that people who, for example, are motivational speakers, they are exhibiting their
Yeah.
talents. So these are some of the criteria. And Barbara, if you have anyone, you can shout
Yeah.
them out as well.
Yeah.
For artists, it's a little bit different, but essentially we're saying that you're coming here to work in a production that is very well known. You've worked in productions that are very well known for organizations that are very well known. You're highly recommended. At the end of the day, it's really proving that you've made an impact and that you're very well known. And before people get scared, they're saying, "Well, the top of the top, that means I have to be like one of the most known in the country." I like to give this example. We had a client who we were able to get actually an EB1A green card. So that standard is even higher, right? If you look
Mhm.
on paper, it looks the same. EB1A and the O1, but in actuality, it's higher because hey, it's the wedding ring. So then the
Yeah.
rates, they're a lot more stricter.
Yeah.
Considering that, I went to see this jujitsu fighter client of ours fight in Las Vegas in this huge jiu-jitsu convention. And I'm trying to find this guy. There are literally 10,000 people in that convention center. I'm trying to find him. And then I went around asking people, like, do you guys know this guy? And I asked about 5 people, and nobody knew him. Nobody knew him, but yet we were able to get him an EB1A. Like he was really
Yeah.
known in his industry, but he wasn't so known where if you ask anybody in jiu-jitsu, they would just know who he is. Okay. I
Yeah.
think that's a good example because so it's like, look, you've made an impact. People know you, but you don't have to be the most well-known people. And that's EB1A. So
Yeah.
it's a lot lower. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot of people out there in your industry who you've never heard of, and they're here in the United States working on an O1A visa. I'll stop right there.
Thank you, Dr. Philip. Yeah, so that was kind of another question because usually people come to me and say, I don't qualify because I'm not famous. People, if you Google my name, you won't find much. But that's not actually a criteria, right? And also often people also mention that, oh, if I qualify for the criteria of the O, and the difference between EB1A and O visa, it's like two more criteria for the EB1. Why shouldn't I apply for EB1 already? Right. So there are those two things that for the O1, the feeling that we have is that the officer is more flexible, right, when analyzing the criteria.
No doubt.
So yes, you have like a few articles published, you were referee in one competition, for example. So that's the standard for the O, right? You are a top tier. What was the word that you mentioned, Dr. Philippe? You are
The,
exceeding in your.
yeah, the creme de la creme, top of the
Yeah.
top. But again, best of the best, doesn't mean the best, right?
Yeah.
You're among the best.
Yes, exactly. So you have a few things, and for the O, also you need a sponsor, right, Dr. Philippe, or an agent or someone
Very,
that
very
will
important
endorse.
segment. Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah. So so
Very important component. Yeah,
yeah. So how should the person work towards that? For example, it may be a company, it may be an agent, it may be the personal own company as well, like a self-sponsoring visa. So
absolutely.
how would we work that according to the profession, right? So it could even be a startup, the sponsor for this person, or could be a agent who would endorse what the person will do and the work that the person will perform in the United States.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you touched on an important point, which is when people are deciding whether or not to do the O1 versus the EB1, which one to
Yeah,
do. Um, and there is kind of this invisible ceiling that we have gotten a sense for in doing so many of these cases. And so when we see a case, we're usually like, well, this is a very strong O1. It's not a extremely
I
strong
do one,
EB1.
yes.
They're like, but what's the difference? Like, show me like the statute. I'm like, it's more like experience.
Yeah,
We've had previous immigration officers work for us, and we go to conferences and we speak to officers, and so the standard is lower for the O1 because they want to give you a chance, right?
exactly.
Whereas the EB1, I mean, you're looking for marriage, and they're really going to hold you to that much higher standard. Um, but it's very positive if you're able to get an approved O1 because the USCIS manual says that an approved O1 is a significant factor when considering your EB1A petition, right?
Yeah,
So if you're right there and we're like, look, we think the O1 is a good shot for you. Come
yeah,
on the O1, work here a few years, and then that is a significant factor for them to consider when you finally apply for the green card. And some people actually they want to get the O1 first without the obligations of a green card. All right,
yeah.
so it's an excellent way, and they're definitely being a lot more generous with the O1 than the EB1 these days. Okay, so that thank you, Barbara, for bringing that up. The sponsor, the agent, that is a big difference between that and the
Mhm.
O-1, but again, standard, it's a very big difference. And it's not as a daunting task as you would think, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
you're involved in your industry, you might know people here who might want to be your sponsor. And what this requires is an itinerary, a contractual agreement. It's an organization or a person acting as an agent who would essentially supervise your work here. You're coming here to fulfill a series of activities for which the organization needs your services. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so this could be an actual agent that represents you. It could be an employer.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, you're able to come here. So there's a lot of flexibility. And Barbara mentioned a very, very important point, which many of our clients have been able to use to get their O-1s, which is while you cannot self-petition, uh,
Mm-hmm.
a company here can petition you, and that company could even be partly owned by you.
Yeah.
Okay. So ideally, you have partners, and ideally,
Mm-hmm.
there is something in the agreement where you are held to a very high standard, and essentially that company can even remove you
Yeah.
if you don't meet certain standards, right? And so it's
Yeah.
not like it's unconditional, right? There
Mm-hmm.
are standards that you're going to have to meet, or else you're going to be essentially kicked out, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can show that, if you can show a decent business plan, and you can show exactly what you're going to be doing here and why that's relevant, it's very possible to get approved through your own company. Again, you have other
Mm-hmm.
partners, you have other people managing it, but we've seen that happen with several of our clients.
Yeah, yeah. And another thing that we often get during consultations is that when this person is endorsed by this agent, this person can work in multiple projects, but there is a specific role, for example, and this is almost it's more relevant for O1B petitions, right? Because sometimes the person is an actor, but can also work as a director, or it can also be a model for advertising campaigns. So for both O1A and O1B, we need to have that role that the person will perform. Isn't that right? Can we talk a little bit about that?
That's correct. USCIS, they really like to see a focused approach. They want to know
Yeah.
exactly what you will be doing. Um, but there are, you can have multiple
Mm-hmm.
O1s approved as well. If you want to engage in multiple endeavors, we can do several part-time. So there are certain ways that you could do it if you want to work for multiple employers or multiple endeavors. But per O1 petition, I definitely want to see a very focused approach.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. So once this person is approved in the United States, you mentioned having the itinerary of the project or a contract, for example, that this person will be in the United States. And we know that we have a 3 years maximum period for the O1 to be approved. So what happens if this person is not happy anymore with that employer? What this person could do within this contract, if this person finds another work, another employer, is it possible to change employers during the O1? How can we help this person manage that?
Well, if you have a little bit of time and you've been with them for a while and you've been able to really build up your resume, it might be time for you to go for an EB-1A.
Yeah.
But each employer does need to have their own O-1. So it might take a little bit more of a strategic planning. But if you come here on the O-1 and your end goal is the green card, start following the process. Follow your
Mhm.
game plan. Really be intentional about showing your value to the country, showing your value to your industry. And we see many of our clients go from O-1 to EB-1A, so it's very possible.
Yeah, great. And the possibility of changing employers, we would need to file another O1 if the person is not yet qualified for the green card.
That is correct. That is correct.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. But if it's a similar position, essentially you've already submitted all the evidence about your background, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be a lot easier to do it the second time around.
Mm-hmm. Is there an error that you see more common on O1 petitions, Dr. Felipe? Like people who sometimes come from another guidance, another consultant that comes here saying that process were denied. Do you have like a most common error that people usually make when petitioning for that?
I think they trust the wrong professional. They don't document the case properly. A lot of people encourage them to, have these whatever articles online, and these are not going to be considered mainstream
Mm-hmm.
articles. Um, they don't emphasize the importance of certain evidentiary criteria. They just, oh, it's easy. It's very possible, but I never like to use the word easy, because then that builds
Uh-huh.
into your psyche. Oh, then I don't need to really work. Unfortunately, it's a team effort, right? It's with
Mm-hmm.
your lawyer. Your lawyer's job, and the legal team's job, is to argue your eligibility, but we need the weapons in order to go to war with you, and the weapons can only come from you and your background. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously we can search online as much as we can, but there's only certain pieces of evidentiary
Mm-hmm.
value that you're going to be able to bring for us. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of consultants out there. They're not lawyers. Um, I tell people, look, I mean, I would never do a medical procedure with somebody who is not a licensed physician, even if
Yeah.
the person worked for a doctor and they actually know how to do this stuff.
Yeah.
First of all, they're never going to be as good as the doctor if they're not actually going to medical school and going through the board. Um,
Yeah.
and it's also an issue of responsibility, ethical
Mm-hmm.
responsibility. So we've seen cases where agents will make up evidence, or they'll tell the client something that's not true. And so, um, you know, go with people who are licensed in this area, and so you can get this done the right way.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that's the most common error that I see here as well. People who trust the wrong person and get into bad things, wasting time, wasting money. Not to mention that it's a life project in most of the cases, right? So puts the family in danger. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's really sad when that happens.
Be
Um,
very careful, and so there's stories of agents who are literally creating evidence for people, and
yeah.
we've seen stories where the people didn't actually know what went into the petition, and then later on they're filing for a green card, and they're like, we start seeing some. I'm like, do you know what went into your petition? Well, yeah, I mean, this is what I do for a living. But then they're like, oh, but I'm not really sure. I'm like, why don't we get the file? And sometimes we have to do a
Yeah.
FOIA to get the file. And then they're actually very surprised when they see evidence there that they never submitted to the agent.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
imagine if you go to your green card interview, and they look at your previous petition and they ask you, hey, what about this and that? I'm like, no, I never did that. I'm like, these are articles from Argentina saying that you did this and this and this. I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
you don't want to be in that position. So lawyers will not do that. Uh,
Hmm.
Outside, we've heard too many horror stories.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what would you say that is the next step for people who are watching us? And I know a lot of students in the United States, they are very keen into starting this immigration process the right way. So, we have potentially several visas that they could apply for example, H-1B and also the O-1. People from the film industry, they love doing O-1s because during the university they engage in a lot of projects. So can we help them on building a career that would guide them through those steps? What would you recommend as the next step?
Absolutely. I wish, most students would watch a webinar like this or talk to somebody like Barbara when they're first starting out. Because if you can really make the best out of your 4 or 5 years or whatever it is, and really get involved and do projects and work on short films and work on documentaries, and really do, and actual, maybe win, some prizes based on the projects that you win, it's possible for you to actually qualify by the time you graduate. You might have enough work experience, you might have enough recognition for you to get an O-1. But if you just been the regular student, you attend your classes, and you haven't been involved, the O1 is not going to be an option for you. An H1B
Yeah.
maybe, and hopefully with the H1B you can stay here to consular process. That way your employer
Yeah.
can avoid the $100,000 fee that's going on. That's going to get
Yeah.
challenging. It sounds like a joke. It's not. But the good thing is that if you're here and you're able to do a change of status here, they're not going to be subject to it. But for O1, you really need to show some impact, some contributions, some recognition, and that doesn't happen if you don't get out there. So if you're a freshman, do those internships, do those projects, volunteer, get involved, show that you have recognition and
Yeah.
contributions under your belt.
Yeah, and also participating in competitions and trying to go to writing scientific articles, present them into congresses, seminars, right? Because that's excellent evidence for us to use towards the O1, and also to impress the employers, right?
Of course, you're going to need that. That's the end game, right? That's what you want.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yes, excellent point. If you are a researcher or you're doing you can write articles in your area. Yes, citations, articles. We absolutely love that.
yeah. Yeah, and what surprised me, Dr. Philippe, is that some people they don't think they have the profile for the O1 because of their field, but actually when we go back into their career background, they have an excellent case. For example, people who are very technical and they helped companies into building projects, so they sometimes have the salary, they have the recognition of the position in the company. They also have the substantial impact, right? They
Yeah,
may not always be so academic, right? But
yeah.
into working in their field, they may have the profile for the O1A. Isn't that right? Have you done cases like that?
You have some firms that they only take you if you have X number of citations, and
Yeah,
that creates a false narrative that people aren't eligible if they don't have academic articles, which is absolutely positively not true. Um, I would even say that maybe the majority of our clients don't have written academic articles. Many do, but I
yeah,
would say most don't. But they're exceptional enough in what they do, and they satisfy the other criteria where they're still able to get it. So if you've been waiting to write that article, I would say write it. If it's something you're already planning on doing, if it's going to be something that's impressive, it's going to make an impact, I would say write it. But if you're just not a writer, I mean,
yeah.
it's not what you do. Don't stress over that. Focus on your strengths.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And out of six criteria, the law says you only need three, right? Of
Correct.
course, the more you have, the stronger will be the case. But yeah, you don't need to have them all, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and a shout out to one of the attorneys we've worked with some federal litigation, Mr. Brian Green. Brian Green, he recently won a case. It's for EB1, but it's definitely going to be used for O1 as well, which essentially says that an overly rigorous analysis of your recognition might not be appropriate. What USCIS was doing is they were analyzing whether or not you qualify for the criteria, but then they were doing like the second step and saying, yeah, but let's
Mhm.
see if you're really great, right? Of course, you're supposed to analyze that when you're doing the criteria analysis, but this came from a Ninth Circuit case years ago called Kazarian, where they just kind of rambled and says, yeah, there should be a final merits analysis. And then people like USCIS took that and they started using it. And then recently, the federal court says, no, that was like dicta. Dicta means like it's just judges rambling. That should not be precedent. So that's actually a very positive decision. One, if you've had
Yeah,
your O1 or your EB1 denied on a similar basis, you could maybe get that reopened. But two, for our current applicants, you better believe it that we're going to point to language that refers to that case and saying, look, I mean, focus on the person's
yeah,
recognition. But if after your analysis you determine that they meet the criteria, that's it. Like that person should be able to get their O1.
Yes, yes, exactly. Um, yeah, I think we cover most of the things of that we were supposed to discuss. And there is a final advice, Dr. Felipe, that you would leave for people who are watching us that wants to apply for the O1A in this near future.
I hope that if you're not quite there, that this webinar gave you some inspiration for you to start being intentional about showing your impact. Because again, most people were working, you know, 9 to 6, 9 to 9, right? Whatever it is, like, we're hustling. We're not necessarily looking to document our hustle because
Yeah.
hustle is more important. But unfortunately for this, they need evidence. So you could be
Mhm.
amazing, but we have to prove it, right? So be intentional, write the article that you've wanted to finish, take the interview, go do
Yeah.
the speech, right?
Take pictures.
Take plenty of pictures,
Yeah.
and a lot of people who are great at to do that, it's just not their thing. Like,
Yeah.
take a picture here and there. I don't like that. Well, you
Yeah.
know, if it's your dream to come here, you're gonna have to suck it up for a little bit until you get your visa approved, and then when
Yeah.
you get your visa approved, you got to do it a little bit more until you get your EB-1A, and then you're all set.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Well, thank you, Dr. Felipe, for your time. I think our talk was amazing, and I hope it helps a lot of people on giving that step, on starting their research, on talking to us about their possibilities, and so we can build a strong strategy for them and help them to their final goal and help their family and the community.
It was a pleasure. And Barbara, as always, you were amazing. And thank you so much for
Thank
everything you
you.
do for us and for the clients. And you're definitely a gift in their lives.
Thank you. Thank you. I say the same to you.